call the meeting to order. I've had regrets from Councillor LeBlanc. We have an agenda. Anything to add? Oh yeah. Okay. Junior added a financial request
for the Plymouth School.
Plymouth School in number 13.
Okay.
And in the business arising, there was one thing that I thought I'd maybe add to that, and that was the tulips, whether or not we know.
I have that information for you.
Okay, good enough.
Great.
So there's no add?
We don't need to add that, or do you want?
Oh no, put it as
there. Yes.
5C if you wouldn't mind. I'll make
5C,
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
5C.
So, if no other motion to approve?
Slow move.
Moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Conflict of interest. Counterminded, nay. Any conflict of interest? Hearing none. Oh, I don't, did we vote? We didn't vote on the, yeah, we did vote.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking tonight. I got a cold and, okay, we have a presentation. We have Trish McCourt on Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia. And Trish, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You're my first council presentation. So.
You'll be fine.
And I have a cold too, so I have a lozenge in my mouth. So I wanted to share with you about ISANS services that are available in our region. I'm a new addition to the team. There are 4 new employer engagers that have been added to the team. And so I'm operating in our region, and I have a very specific role that I wanted to share with you that I think will be helpful to constituents in the area. ISANS is an immigrant services organization that started in Halifax about 35 years ago. Started with settlement services and language services and has since grown tremendously. It's now an organization with about 300 employees. We have everywhere from the language and settlement services to employment support services. Not all of those are services that will be offered in this region because we have some of those services happening with other organizations, and I'm not here to duplicate any services. So YReach, for instance, does settlement services in our area, and that would be Dolores Atwood. And Western Ren provides assistance around the Atlantic Immigration Project, which I'll tell you a little bit more about when we get to that as well. But ISANS has been serving Nova Scotia with these types of services for many years and has a huge amount of expertise in anything to do with immigrant services. With the caveat being, we don't deal with immigration at all. It's all immigrant services. It's the services that someone who is immigrating here would need and how to help them to be employable. And in doing that work, we've found that there's a need to support employers that are looking to hire immigrants that will be coming to Canada to work for them. So our strategic priorities are empowering immigrants, the value and support of our staff, engaging partners and community, championing a more inclusive and welcoming province. So probably the first month that I've been in this role, I started August 1st, I spent almost all of my time reaching out to community partners that are providing different services that are connected to the work that I'm doing, so that I can let an employer know that if they have a question, anything to do with immigrant services, they can call me. And because I'm the only one, besides YReach, who's doing only things to do with immigrant. And that way, people aren't having to do a wild goose chase trying to figure out who they need to call with what question, and I'll refer them to the appropriate people, whether it's within ISANS or to a community organization in our area. So as an employer engager, I work between the employer and our employer support programs and services. And I promote the benefits of hiring immigrants. So part of what I'll be doing is some awareness and education around those benefits to our region. and how to strengthen and diversify your workplace so that you can be a welcoming environment for cross-cultural employees. In Nova Scotia, this is just to give you an idea of how many have been coming to Nova Scotia from abroad. This is just permanent residents. And you see in 2012 it was about 2,000, and in 2018 we're up to almost 6,000. And that will be continuing to grow. And we know that there's a real need for it to grow because we have a huge labor shortage in our region for lots of different reasons, but it's going to continue to be a labor shortage as our population ages and we don't have as many people entering the workforce as leaving it. So immigration will enable economic and population growth, education and healthcare improvements, innovation, community diversity, and labor needs. And you know, you've probably noticed just a little bit of change in the communities around us lately with some of the immigrants that have moved here, with things like the Mexican restaurant that opened downtown Yarmouth. And so that helps the communities to be more vibrant too, which is another reason why people will come to stay here. Whether they're immigrating or not. And then they can also bring some expertise from outside of Canada that we may be able to benefit from. They may speak several languages and usually are coming very committed to the work that they're going to be doing. Most of the employers that I've spoken with have found that the foreign workers that they have hired have the best work ethic of any of their employees, and it's because they are very, very motivated to be here and to stay here. They're also very, very easy to adapt to change within the workplace because they're already adapting to so many different changes. So we get qualified referrals for employers. We have a skills match program that the qualified candidates are on, and some other programs that help them to find employment, especially if they have credentials from their home country that need to be assessed in Canada, as well as the workplace culture training program, assistance with English in the workplace, and information about the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project. So the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project is supported in our region by the Western REN. This is a pilot that started, it's going on 3 years now, and it's meant to make it a little bit easier and quicker for employers to hire someone from outside of Canada. It's employer driven, so the employer has to get designated to be able to look for someone to come to Canada, and when they find a candidate, then they refer that candidate through the immigration process in a different stream that is specific to Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project. So we do a webinar monthly that anyone can go to our website and register for that will give more information about the Atlantic Immigration Pilot and how to go about going through that stream and whether they have the eligibility requirements that they might need. Some of those questions can be answered during that. So Skills Match is an e-recruitment tool, so it's a job posting site, but it's specific for immigrants to look for jobs on. So it has two different pieces to it. There's an employer portal and an employee portal. The employees are all immigrants who have been vetted by ISANS in Halifax. So eventually we'll hopefully find a way to have some of the people who have immigrated directly to Yarmouth to be able to also be on it. But right now, the way that it's set up, they go through employment support services and are job ready when they're listed on this website. So it means if an employer goes on, they register, they post their job posting, they have to include the NOC code, the occupational code that the federal government would attach to the position, and it will be matched with candidates that have skills that fall into that particular code. And then they would be able to offer them a position without even having to go through all of these other pieces, because they already are people who are either permanent residents or have got a work permit in place already and are able to work in that particular area that the job, that their work permit would allow them to. So it's another tool. There's a number of employers in our area that have recently registered for it and are starting to go through the candidates in there to see. There's at least 300 candidates listed on it now that are looking for employment in Nova Scotia. So that might be able to address some of the solution that some of the employers are finding challenges with right now. The Workplace Culture Program has been coming to our area for a while now. Paul Pickering is the individual who does this training program, and he does both a webinar training that's offered. There's two different programs. One is around the benefits of hiring a diverse workforce, and the other is a how to leverage that diverse workforce. But then he can come and do on-site workshops around more specific things like conflict resolution, how to have a welcoming environment, and he can also customize the workshops if there's enough of demand for it. And the workplace ones are also available, just registering through our website online for the webinars. English in the Workplace is a language training program that's different than the basic English language training that is available to immigrants. Even in our area, Y-Reach offers English language training through Burridge campus. This goes beyond that, so that will give people up to their Canadian language benchmark of 5, which is what's required to have permanent residency. After that, when you're working in the workforce, you still may have language challenges, and it's usually industry-specific language. So the English in the Workplace program is customized to that particular workplace, and the way that it is offered in our area would be at a distance, twice a week, 90-minute classes that are done online, and they'll work with the employer to determine what language is needed to be worked on with the employee to help them to really integrate into the workforce more successfully. So those are the main employer support programs. There are some others. There's programs that help employees to get their credentials assessed so that they can come to Canada and have their credentials recognized for Red Seal certification if it's a trade or other professional designations. And those are all done through different pathways and some assessment programs that include work placement so that people can get Canadian experience and maybe get some referrals from Canadian employers to help them to find employment beyond that. Any questions?
Just wondering about, I know a lot of the work here, not all, but some, especially related to the fishing industry, is seasonal. So how do we handle the challenge of that? Because I guess people that want to come here would want to work, I would imagine, would work the whole year, right? So is there challenges there? Or? There
are, but there are other streams that they can go through. So with the Atlantic immigration pilot, it has to be for a full-time year-round opportunity. However, temporary foreign workers are really what most of the seasonal are coming through, and that can be kind of a way to then move towards immigration and becoming a permanent resident. So, for instance, there's one of the fish plants in Wedgeport has this year 42 temporary foreign workers. A number of those are candidates for the Atlantic immigration pilot, and once they've reached, at this point, it's just their language benchmark that they need to reach in order to apply for permanent residency. But there would only be a small number of those that would be able to do that because they would be the ones that would have year-round employment. The temporary foreign workers would come for the season, return to their home, but what they're finding is they're getting the same temporary foreign workers back every year, and they're wanting to relocate here and have their families come and live here with them. So these kinds of things are in place so that what our ultimate goal is to help people come and immigrate, become a resident, have their families come and stay with them, settle in the community, and have second-generation immigrants that are staying in this community and adding to our economy. And that's really, I think, where the biggest benefit is going to be for our communities that have seen such a decline in population over the last couple of decades.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah.
Education, say somebody from another country comes here and their qualifications is not meeting to our specifications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything there, or maybe it's not you guys that would look for that, but like for education, like to send them back to university to upgrade to our standard?
That there may be someone within ISANS that would be able to help them work through that, but some of it really is just about their credentials being assessed and compared with the Canadian credentials. And there are a number of occupations where many countries have had their credentials assessed at their major universities. So like physicians are an example. So there's different pathways that have been created with these multi-stakeholder working groups that are, so physicians, engineers, nurses, teachers. There's a number of different ones that have formed pathways that will help an immigrant to go through that process in a more streamlined process and to determine exactly what those needs are. They would have to be either qualified as an international student to get some of the assistance that might be available through the government, or if they're a permanent resident. So refugee is automatically a permanent resident, and a refugee may not have any educational qualifications at all, but they would qualify for the same support as any other Canadian citizen would, because they've become a permanent resident of Canada. So there are a few different ways that can be done. Some of that is more specific to immigration and would be a question for the Nova Scotia Office of Immigration or the Canadian Citizenship Office, but some of it is supports that ISANS has been working on. And so there are so many different people that I can reach out to ask those questions. I just encourage people to get in touch with me and I will find out the answer and get back.
Anybody else?
No, Councillor Dion asked what I was interested in knowing, so.
I had one. How does how do you all integrate, like with Dolores, and then of course it's a vacant spot with the Ren, but like how does that all work? You're all doing separate things related to immigration. You're not, duplicating. But how does it work around doing that type of work together? How it's been? I realize you're new in your position, so this might be unfair, but
well, and really, I'm taking responsibility for facilitating that. So I have met with just about every one of those partners now, and we make referrals to one another, and sometimes we'll offer, in order to make it easier for the employer, we'll meet all together at one time. We actually did that today with another who's from Wedgeport, and it was Yvette from the CDENE and myself and Brenda from Western Ren and Andrew from Western Ren, who's doing the Business Now lead. We all met with him at once and shared all the information at the same time so that he didn't have to go to multiple meetings with people. And that's just something that I feel is really important for us to do. It's so fragmented in our area, and the only way employers are really going to see it as a possible solution is if it's made as easy as possible to get through that process.
just one. What should municipal administrators or political leaders be doing right now in light of this need for population increase? What would you recommend that we focus on at this point to either support your work or to be more engaged in immigration retention in the area?
Well, there's a couple of things. I know that there is a multicultural group in Argyll that does some work to help welcome people to the community, which is fantastic. I think probably the biggest one, the thing that I'm really looking for, is to just share that we are here, that we have supports available, and that, I will go to the employer wherever they are. They don't have to come to me. Well, they really can't because I don't have an office that I can welcome them to because it's in my house. But I can always go and meet them anywhere. And like I said, I will invite other partners to come into that meeting to make it easier for them. So really right now, it's really just looking to get that information out there, that it is a viable solution and that there are supports available to make it easier for employers to go through the process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess I do have a question.
Yep.
Do employers have to ensure that there's adequate housing before they can apply for workers or other
If you're
workers?
sponsoring an employer to come as an immigrant, yes. So with the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project, that is an expectation that the employer is going to ensure someone is meeting them at the airport when they arrive, that they have things in place like the connections they need in the community. If they're bringing their family with them and they have children, making sure that they know what contacts they need for school, those kinds of things. But there is support with that settlement plan. So part of the application is that you have spoken with someone that helps with the settlement plan. So in our region, that would be Dolores, but ISANS can do it as well. And in that settlement plan, part of it is accommodations. It's definitely the part that's been presented as the most challenging for employers in our area all over rural Nova Scotia. Accommodations and transportation have been the two big ones that come up, aside from the language barrier and making sure that there are support for people to learn the language. But if they're coming through the AIP, they will have the Canadian language benchmark of 5. They're not allowed to come on that program if they don't reach that minimum. So that will help with it a bit. But accommodations are challenging. I know that the employer in Wedgeport that has been very successful with it would have brought more temporary foreign workers this season if he'd had more accommodations available. He has since purchased another property to get ready for the next season, and I think the forecast is that they'll probably be looking at about 60 foreign workers in the next season. And these are, you know, jobs that no Canadians are applying for. A story was shared with me about someone who had a parent that was very upset because their child had worked there previously, and they're seeing all these temporary foreign workers coming in and taking jobs, and they were very upset about it because these people were supposedly taking Canadian jobs. And without even knowing who the child was, he could say, "I can tell you your child didn't apply for the job." Well, how do you know that? Not one single Canadian applied. And yet they brought 42, mostly from Mexico, to come and work hard and do a really good job. So it's a solution, especially in areas like fisheries and hospitality, that if we don't go this route, businesses are going to have to close because they won't have people to serve the need. So, and you know, there are a number of employers who have seen success with it that are willing to speak to that too. So I can always, we're planning on setting up an information session for most of the fisheries. Ignite's going to work with me to get people together to provide information about these opportunities and have a couple of success stories shared about how well it's been working for them and how they've been able to stay in business because of it.
Just for information, what ages are these immigrants that I know you haven't been in there too long, but
Yeah.
am I right in saying that they're younger families? They're not people in their 60s they're coming in, or, yeah, I was just wondering, it's probably a younger population, I wonder?
I would say mostly, yeah. There are some, most of the older ones that are coming would most likely be coming as a single individual versus coming with family, except in the refugee situation. It's a totally different thing. But with the temporary foreign workers, it's often someone who's coming and then sending money back to their family to provide for their family. And so it's usually someone in, you know, that early adulthood that have lots of energy and are willing to just work their butts off to help their family.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No more questions. Thank you very much,
And thank you
Trish,
for your time.
For the presentation, very interesting
you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Very good presentation.
Yeah, for your first one.
Very good.
Okay. So we'll continue on. Number 4 is the adoption of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole, September 24.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Carried. Business arising, we have the Transportation and Infrastructure tentative date for meeting for October 29th. So that would be at our Committee of the Whole?
It will be an hour before
But
the.
same night?
Correct.
Ah, yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be asking council to come in at 5:30, and
Yes.
if there's any part of the presentation that would want to go into the agenda, the actual agenda meeting, then we can potentially do that, but I think they're understanding that they're coming in for an hour
Okay.
and talking about what's happening.
Right. We're all okay with that? Bilingual road signs. Kathy, did you say you had a
Yes, I attended the meeting to Capet last week, and they asked to have a meeting with the municipality for these signs,
Right.
because especially where the Congrès Mondial is
Yes.
coming, they have a lot of ideas and things that they like to discuss with us.
Okay.
Yeah, so they like to set up a
So
meeting.
it would be, yeah, something that we can coordinate between the two
Right.
groups.
Mhm.
So that's probably better sooner than too much later.
I think the
to get
faster
things
we work
going.
on this,
I guess maybe it's just a matter of getting in touch with
Sally.
Sally and find out when they're available, and then finding out if we can
Yeah.
coordinate it with our group.
Yeah.
We can do that as,
Okay.
we can support you there.
That's
Great.
great.
Well, that's a takeaway for a stop.
Mhm. Yes. Okay. The planting of tulips, so we're supposed to see if we could get someone from staff that would get that ready, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Staff is ready, willing, and able to do that. So
Okay.
so Public Works, I've asked Public Works to connect directly with the Legion
Okay.
and their
Sounds good.
representative, and we'll
Yeah.
get it done. So we'll be maintaining that on their behalf once it's
There.
once it's put down.
Because it's probably gonna have need material, because they're gonna have to raise the bed somehow, so.
There will likely be costs associated with doing that, and we will absorb those costs.
Okay, that sounds good. Councillor reports. Anybody have reports? You want to start?
Help prepare a base for the new sign that's there for the people to see coming into West Pubnico. Did some groundwork so more plants could be planted in La Butte de Gracie. And talking about bulbs, there was a bunch of women there today, 6 or 8 women there today. They planted over 400 bulbs there today, I believe, in the hill, so they were doing a lot of work. And both of these projects were spearheaded by the West Side Improvement Society, and they are doing great work in our community. Welcome people to the Communities in Bloom event in Yarmouth on behalf of the municipality of Argyle. That was a great event. I was there that evening for a couple of hours. Got to meet a lot of people from all over, and they're really amazed how well they were being treated. So it was definitely put Southwest Nova on the map as far as these people coming from away. And attended a 40th anniversary celebrations for the Musée des Acadiens de Pubnico, and that is going on all week. They've got some different activities going on. And I'd just like to say they are a very, very hard group of workers there, a group of hard workers around the Musée. There's always something going on, and it's great. And attended the Mariners Center management meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor.
I attended a few meetings. I attended Nikhil. They're still celebrating their 30th anniversary that will be finalized in November. They're going to have their open house. November the 6th.
6th.
Yeah.
No, that's the same
Yeah,
time as
right.
our, you understand, I was talking to,
Yeah.
Gail this afternoon, and she wondered if I was gonna be there to maybe say a
Right.
few words on behalf of the
Mhm.
municipality, but we're gonna be away.
Right, and I attended the Recreation Committee, the Special Airport Meeting Committee, the Audit Committee, and yesterday I volunteered at the Eastside Community Center. It's a great gang. We served 136 chicken burgers and 80 some odd fish and chips. It was a
Mhm.
great
Wow.
success.
It was a good event. Councillor Surratt.
I attended the Waste Park, special meeting for the Waste Park, which was about the tender for the C&D cell. So that was awarded, and for around 550,000. And there's the Mariner Center Group of 9 that met, Alan's got that on his report, and I won't stretch into it, but there was a good meeting, and a lot of discussion about the Mariner Center, where we're going, you know, where we're getting going into some of our next moves, so I'm sure Alan has that in his report. That's it.
Okay.
Nothing, not a lot to report. Attended a few committee meetings. Argyle Baptist Festival is organizing a potluck for some evening. The date hasn't been set to show appreciation for all the volunteers. And I've been approached to encourage people to sign a petition for the Glenwood-McKeel intersection. That's at front and center. There's been an accident there, what, roughly a week, almost 2 weeks
Is
ago.
that right?
Yeah, so.
It's a dangerous spot.
So anybody sees the petition going around, please sign it or encourage people to sign it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's about all.
Councillor Murphy? Nothing to report? Councillor Taylor?
I also attended the McKeel meeting that Councillor Bork covered, recreation as well. I just wanted to mention, in terms of recreation, talked about the summer programs and how things had went really well. They have a lot of programs for seniors that are really well attended, actually, and day camp went well. They talked about the teen pilot program that we had supported last year, and that was successful. They had quite a few teens sign up for the program. The challenge there is staffing, because it's only 3 days a week. So they're kind of struggling with how they're going to do that next year. And also, who do you hire? Because it's hard to hire a 16-year-old to run programs for 12, 13-year-olds. So they were lucky enough to hire a teacher this year who used to be a day camp counselor. So she came back and did the teen program, so that went well, but that's something that they're working out. They are having their Halloween event on October 26th, which is coming up for children, which they have every year. The athletic awards banquet is on the 29th of November. That is coming up as well. And the strategic plan, we've finally think we've ironed out most of the kinks for the strategic plan, and that is going to be presenting it to council at some point soon. Also attended a doctor recruitment meeting. At the doctor recruitment meeting, the community navigator gave us a quick report. At that point, she had been with us for 9 days, and it was unbelievable the amount of things that she had done in 9 days. So it's looking very positive. She's very gung-ho and working hard to make connections she's attending different events and making different events to make people who are here, doctors who are here, residents, feel welcome, and putting lists together of activities that are available for them. So things are starting to move. It's very encouraging. I did have a question for council though. Do you remember, it's probably been a couple of months ago that there was a letter sent to the Minister Delory asking, they just wanted a letter of support from council. They wanted me to ask, is it okay if I just, at our doctor recruitment meeting, something like that, is it okay if I approve something like that without having to bring it to council? Because but no financial things at all, nothing financial, but a letter of support such as that, because otherwise it was delayed almost 2 months because we didn't meet in the summer. Just those kinds of things happened. So they said it would be if we could, if something similar to that, would it be okay for me to approve that? Nothing financial though, they're not talking about financial.
I think it should come to
Okay.
council, that's myself on this.
It could even come through an email.
An email?
Even through an
Even-
email.
Yeah.
Okay,
So our CAO can look at it, that's
Because
better.
we've done that before, where we knew there was a rush on when that letter was supposed to go out, and I've done that, I think. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not the practice that we usually take, but it works, and, you know, as long as an email, people
Okay.
agree with it.
yeah, I'm fine with
Does
that.
that work?
That works. I think, you know, like the warden has, typically when it comes to communication, the warden is signing off on any sort of correspondence. So, you know, one of the ways to do this much faster would be that Nicole would generate that request and bring it to all of us, but then have the warden sign off.
Sign off.
I get you.
And then you don't need to wait for a meeting to have an
Exactly.
approval for a letter
Which was a great point.
that you would typically do without approval
Exactly
in most
right.
cases.
Right.
So,
Right.
so we can definitely do that by email. We don't require a motion of council to get that support. That would be nice, but it does not require, I don't think, unless it's financials.
Right. And, yeah.
But as long as it's consensus, you know that council are not going to oppose.
And
Right.
if there is an issue doing it in email, we will receive that reaction from council, and then
Right.
at that point, we can decide whether it needs to be discussed.
It isn't something that happens often,
No.
but in that case,
Yeah.
Exactly.
it just got delayed, and I knew it was something you were all going to approve. It was a no-brainer, but I still brought it to council, but they had just mentioned, to kind of ask and see how council felt about that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just on that note, being as though our CAO said that it could be a vote before council, giving her that authority, can we do that here this evening? Or can we put it for notice for the next meeting?
To give her the
Nicole.
authority to sign on behalf of the municipality.
It would be, just for clarity, it'd be the authority to speak on behalf of council
Exactly.
at that committee meeting.
Right.
That's right.
So the committee her vote would not bind you, but it would guide the municipality's
Right.
approval. So
Yes.
you can consider doing that as well. I mean, that's the point of the subcommittee is that you're asking them to make decisions on your behalf.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
that's an alternative
You know.
way to approach that, for sure.
But we've got more than one subcommittee, I mean, we probably all sit on some type of subcommittee, so.
Yeah, I mean, the airport board, for instance, doesn't necessarily ask its owners to sign off on a letter that the board makes a decision on. If it's financial, then they do.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be fairly large,
Yeah.
so it's not uncommon to do that. So it really is up to you how you want to deal with it.
Because she stated it would not be for financial,
No.
No.
expenditures or nothing like that. It's just to speak on our behalf, and that as a council. And that, I just hate to see, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very important board you're sitting on. I don't want to see anything held back or, delayed any longer than it has to be on stuff like that. And I know there's times I sit on the Mariners management meeting and I speak, and I'm representing the municipality of Argyle on that board.
That's right, you're representing, but I think that's a different, it's a letter of support though. Is that what you're saying, that she could sign the letter of support? Is that what you're, yeah?
Not so much
No.
signed a
No,
letter of
The letter of
support.
support was signed,
That's already went in, or
It-
they should have received that already.
yes, that's already done, but what I was saying is just, when that meeting occurred,
Yes.
our council wasn't meeting for summer,
Right.
right? So I had to wait
Mhm.
a couple of months to bring it back, where I was pretty certain we were going to approve
Yes.
that. And it would have been easy enough for me to say, yes, we support a letter of support, but I
course.
felt like I couldn't until I brought it to council.
Okay,
So it's that kind of thing that
Yeah.
they're just asking. I know, it's kind of a gray area.
No, but I can see, if you're there representing the municipality, you should be able to vote. You shouldn't have to come to us every time you
Exactly.
vote yes.
Exactly.
Something,
Okay.
right? to me, anyway.
And it's, like I said, nothing financial, it would never be any kind of financial decision.
And it's, you have something else.
The only thing, Nicole, or anybody on council, that I want to be very, very careful on, that anything that's signed or signed by somebody else that, and council hasn't seen, as long something is not controversial, that you may think is fine, and that one was, obviously, but
Yeah.
this is something why I'd be very, very, that it be vetted through this council before, just in case there is a, you know, that's my view. That's why I prefer it if it came through, not because I want my nose in it, it's because I just to be sure. But I know that one was a no-brainer, but anyhow, yeah. My opinion.
That's Councillor.
Yes.
I don't like arguing with Guy, but
It's all right.
this doctor recruitment board has a budget. We've contributed to that budget, so they make financial decisions. If they're asking for financial decisions outside of the perimeter of what they have, it's gotta come back to council.
Exactly.
But against Guy's argument,
Yeah.
we sit on the waste park, right?
Yeah.
That has a budget.
Yeah.
Most of it's municipal money.
Yeah.
We make decisions, they are financial decisions, where they bring them back to council. I mean, we just approved a new C&D cell.
Yeah.
We didn't have to come back to council to get.
But it came out of their budget.
Keeping on
Yes,
the budget,
right,
it was already
but
budgeted there.
she would be making decisions on that board, financial decisions, out of the budget that they have.
Of course.
But my question wasn't financial, it was, if, let's say if the letter is controversial, it could be controversial, I'm not saying it is. If it was, how do you, if you sign the letter and you haven't written it then?
Yeah, but they have a
No.
whole board to decide
That's
whether
right.
it's controversial.
Well, there's a great point then, yeah.
So,
Because my point is still, before something is sent out on behalf of council, it should be seen. That's my opinion.
anyhow,
Yeah, no, I respect your point.
So what's the wishes here?
I'm still, we would go along with Councillor Albright, and I don't know if we can make that motion here this evening, or if we can put a notice of motion for the next meeting or not, and that to give her permission, and that to vote on her behalf.
And that would
on
just
matters.
give her, it doesn't give every committee member that same privilege to do that, or is it just for one councillor?
Maybe we should do it for everybody.
But I would say some of us are doing it now, and that when I'm representing the municipality of
Yes, I
Argyle
know.
on the Mariners management.
That's right.
And I'm voting, on behalf of our municipality when I vote.
What we all do on any committee we're on.
I didn't mean
I
to
don't-
open
I
up a
don't
can of
think-
words.
I don't think that's, I don't
It's
think
a
that's
great
the issue.
conversation.
I
It's a
don't
great
think that's the
conversation.
issue. The issue was the letter.
The letter at
going
that
out,
point.
Signed on behalf of the municipality.
That's right.
That was the issue there.
At that point,
Now,
right.
we know that we as committee members are going to be voting at committees. We can't say, oh, I'd like to, but I have to consult with the council. We're there representing council. We all do that. The issue there was the letter, I
I
guess.
think that was
that's-
like a specific ask, right?
Yes,
At that
A
point.
letter of support from council, well, if it's a
So
letter of
that-
support from council,
it
it
should
should probably come back to council.
whether it's through email, whether it's so that we're
That's right.
aware of that letter. And that can, and then you don't have to wait
And-
for a month or
And
whatever.
that's part
for a
of
meeting.
transparency too.
Right.
It brings it back to council, everybody sees it,
That's right.
everybody says yes or no or whatever, and then we move on, right?
Okay?
Okay, so if you were going to decide to have this committee, you're not actually deciding that necessarily that Nicole, Councillor Albright, speaks for you. What you're deciding is that the board's decision to correspond to other levels of government either requires or does not require your permission.
Right.
Right, because what's happening with this board is they are writing letters potentially to the Department of Health.
Yeah.
And typically those kinds of letters to a minister get the blessing of the political group.
Right.
So, my recommendation to help you along the road is like, there's probably many letters that really you wouldn't care to have a discussion about. And that if you have a trusted counselor at the board level, and she can decide whether or not that's something that the board that the council should be brought in on. I mean, I don't think there's any letter that would come out of that board that Councillor Albright wouldn't show at least myself or the warden initially, in order for that to happen. So I think that's the issue, and I know that there's other councils that were concerned about that. It's not just an issue here. Other councils wanted to be engaged in that decision because of the political nature of writing directly to a minister, for instance. So in some of your other boards, you make decisions, but you're not actually sending a letter to a minister.
That's right.
And so I think when the letter goes to a political person like that, then it makes sense that it receives at least a blush or a brush look from this council. That's, I think, that would be from my perspective.
I'm just, yeah, I still support Councillor Albright 100% in the board that she's on 100%. Because I know as councils what kind of track record we've had for getting doctors and that down here in this area. So I support it 100%.
Okay, we're all right. Next is the Warden's Report, which
No, we've
is...
skipped Calvin altogether.
Oh, skip Calvin. Calvin.
I promise mine won't be as long as Nicole's. Councillor Albright, sorry. I also sat on the audit committee with Councillor Book, and also took in the Yarmouth Argyle Home Support meeting where we discuss all kinds of things, and you know, between budgets and contracts and all kinds of stuff. So it's interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Now, Warden's Report. It's attached. I just listed the meetings that I've attended. I had a report where after my meeting I would write it down, what took place and whatever. And I was ready to email it to Lori, and it wouldn't go, and it said to, how did it say, delete something, and I thought I was deleting the email, and I deleted and lost my whole report. So for this report, it's just the meetings that that was here.
It's all right,
So
what's wrong with that?
I wanted to maybe
Add on.
add on and say, I mean, it's one thing to say I was at a meeting, but sometimes it's good to be able to report what the meeting was about. So anyway, for this time, that's all it was. And I wasn't gonna sit there and try to remember back a month ago, okay.
Good idea.
So if there's any questions on my report, I attended, that's not here, I attended the Pubnico, the East Side supper. Yeah, it was good, it was very well attended. Anyway, that's my report. Now we go to staff report.
I submitted the staff report, and when it came to delete, I deleted the staff. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
We're not so lucky.
That's what you were hoping for. You were hoping for the Warden's Report in full and the deleted staff report. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. So just a couple things. Number one, I believe the deadline for the sea cucumber appeal, the appeal has come and gone. So there will be some movement in that area. I don't know exactly what that looks like. It will depend on the developer. The municipal admin building, the public road has begun. So public road we wanted to do separately so that we could get to the back lot if there were issues or delays around the admin building, that other development possibilities could occur in the meantime. We will be paving a portion of that, and then the rest of it will be dirt for now. I say for now, it could be dirt for the foreseeable future, but right now the plan is to pave a certain section and to have that go into a dirt public road.
You
Pardon
put
me?
something at the road, I saw Wayne and somebody else put it right at the driveway there. It's looks like a black fabric or something.
Right, so it's I'm not 100% sure why they're doing that, but obviously there's a ditching component and there's a water movement component to this work, so it could be that they're anticipating that.
Yes.
I don't know the detail of why they put that in, but I know there's part of the plan is obviously moving water in a different way and, off the property.
Perfect.
Affordable and alternative housing, there is a development permit that was approved. However, there's a bit more work to be done in that respect in order for that a project to move forward. Mariner Center expansion, just very quickly, we did have a meeting this week to talk about what that looks like. There was a lot of discussion around how big is this project and who's involved in terms of partnership in this project. And so the work is ongoing. The takeaway from the meeting was to develop a kind of a plan of action. So this first, then this, to see where we're headed with that. And some of that, of course, will include a form of public engagement to make sure that the public is on board with a major expansion at that location.
A lot of questions. I get a lot of questions about the Mariner Center expansion.
Yes.
And what's happening.
Yes.
Positive?
They want to know, yes,
Okay.
they want it to happen, but wondering
Yes.
about finances and about funding and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think the application of 40 million might have been a little aggressive, but we don't know that for sure. The political will at the federal and provincial level at this point in time, we're not sure how much they would be willing to invest. We did talk about other projects that are similarly sized that are happening or have happened in Nova Scotia the last, recently. I think one of them was mentioned was the East Hants project, which was probably 18-20 million project that was mostly aquatic. It was aquatic in nature. So, $20 million project on a new aquatic center was very consistent with the pricing that we would have seen for an aquatic center here. I imagine an aquatic center here would be more expensive just because we're further away from the material and some of the potential bidders. So it would potentially be more expensive than that. So it would be the major component of a $40 million project, but there's a lot of uncertainty still around the funding. So, yeah. Not as much I know about that, I think, unless councillors Danny or Warden or Deputy Warden.
Pretty much covered it.
Pretty well, yeah.
So I think we have questions too. And so we hired a WSP to lead the revamp of the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws, so you were aware of that. I did attend the CPA 1 conference in Montreal, 21-24. It was very, very good. It's very rare that you have the opportunity to take a national conference of that nature. You have that opportunity with FCM, which is great for municipality, and I've done that before, but this one was, they herded, thousands of nerds into a room, and it was really, it was quite good from a CPA's perspective. And so it was good to have that different type of learning. So I want to thank council for that opportunity. And so AMA is the AMA conference is next week, and I included some of my report in the staff report for your information if you wanted to read it. And the rest of the report is there for your questions or concerns, or if you have any questions about any department head reports, I'll do my best to answer those as well.
Any questions?
The only thing I did see looking over at that, I guess the Rosie, is it? I was gonna call her Sadie, but Rosie's still not performing like she's supposed to.
Rosie is not performing the way she's supposed to.
And for the people that may be watching at home, that's the dewatering truck, and that for West Pubnico that was bought for the sewer system. And, yeah.
Right, so it's the company who sold us the product, we had a bit of a heart-to-heart, and it's like, and so they feel like they have a solution that might work. They are trying things, and then they're learning, this is working, but this isn't, and so they're moving in that direction. We're not prepared to cancel at this time. We'd like for them to exhaust their workarounds or their work around this asset. It's no question that the confidence level on the success has reduced significantly over the months, and we are we have a contingency plan in case that does not work.
But it's just, I believe it's safe to say that that truck has never reached near what limitations it was told us or expectations that it should have.
That would be
since we did
correct.
that.
That would be 100% correct.
And the only thing I'm hoping there is just, the company that we purchased it from just don't keep us hanging on, and each month the price of that depreciation going down on that truck, and them saying, well, it's not worth much at the end.
Yeah, no, they've been fairly good. They want to solve the problem because it's an irritant to them as well. So they have plans to come this week to do what they said they were going to do. So there is still an advantage of Rosie, is that she's mobile and she has other uses other than dewatering. But we purchased Rosie for the primary purpose of dewatering West Pubnico.
Exactly.
And so if we can't do that, then we cannot continue with that product.
This is a lot of money that's out there.
Yeah, it's an investment. It was the least expensive dewatering option we had, other than the one that we have there now,
Yeah.
which is the bags.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean the investment won't be lost. We will find a way to recover that investment and take a different approach. We're certainly not going to, you know, what's the expression, the best strategy for riding a dead horse is to dismount, right? So we're not there yet, but it is not beyond the possibility that we'll find another way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've never rode a dead horse, but I'll take your word for it.
I have done so. I have absolutely done that, and it's not productive. Yeah, it doesn't work. So anyway, so there's are there any other questions?
Thank you. I think it's something to do with kicking a dead horse, not riding it.
Something about the best way to ride a dead horse is to dismount. I really messed it up.
Like I said, I'll take your word for it,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one
Yes.
question, the smell in West Pubnico at the plant, so it's been okay. I haven't heard Councillor D'Artimo mention anything,
I haven't had any complaints.
so that means whatever they've been doing seems to be working then?
Yeah, I mean we've had to pay for a service to reduce the sludge because
That's
we
what we
couldn't
had to-
move the sludge fast enough. So it has changed the way that we've done business. That's how we used to do business, in fact, and we saw that it was very expensive. The other thing is we had a fairly dry and low activity with wastewater in West Pubnico this year. There's been a lot of people not in West Pubnico this year, so you can't flush the toilet if you're in Brazil Lake, you know. So
That's right. Right.
so there's the camping season has had a tremendous impact on
Yes.
volume, which
Right.
subsequently has an impact on the function of
Sure,
the facility.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. With no more, we'll move on to strategic priority topics, there's 9. For decision, REMO Agreement. There's attached to 12 pages. So, we're looking to approve this, discuss it at least to see if there's anything.
Yep. So our EMO coordinator, potentially soon to be REMO coordinator, Janine Muse is here I mean, obviously because it's an important document for Janine, and it's also for any questions that maybe I may not be able to answer, which is possible, very much possible. So just very quickly, you know, this is a regional EMO agreement, so that means that we will be coordinating emergency measures regionally after this agreement is signed by all 3 parties. The budget will be one budget, so we will be managing the operations of the REMO through Argyle. So it means anybody employed under that, including, you know, Janine, will be paid by the municipality of Argyle. So all the expenses will be paid by us, and we will be billing the other 2 units for their share.
We're the host.
We are the host municipality, correct.
Is the office going to be in our location or it's still in Yarmouth?
The EMO, the REMO coordination office will be the town, the primary location will be the town of Yarmouth.
Right.
The secondary location is identified as Hebron Complex.
Okay.
There is still an opportunity for us to host an EOC. However, and we will be potentially building a little bit of multi-use space in our new building to allow that to happen, but it's actually quite rare that it would be used. We obviously will have an office for the REMO coordinator in this building and definitely in the new building. So,
Okay.
yeah, so if there's an emergency.
That was more, I guess
Yeah.
what I was getting at, whether her office was gonna be with us or with the municipality of Yarmouth. Yeah.
Her office, working
Will be
office
here.
will be here.
Here.
And
Okay.
her REMO, if the emergency operations center needs to be
Yes.
opened, it will be at the town.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so in order, and there's 80 reasons why that's a good idea, seeing as, you know, all of our resources would have to be accountable to both locations. This is how it happened with, when we had the storm, I think it was 2008 or 2010, right? Right, it was. So, in that year, we had both facilities open, and it was major flooding, and it was, like, the recommendation coming from our partners was, you need to have this as one. The RCMP can't be manning, or being in 2 places, and Department of Transportation, same problem. So, this really precipitated a conversation that eventually resulted in an agreement that we're presenting to you as council. Most of the capital expenditures that you will be expected to spend won't change under this agreement. If you, as a council, decide you want to buy something of a capital nature to support EMO, you do that, and you do that with your own money. And the town and municipality, same. This is really an operations sharing. The funding allocation is on the back, and it is calculated based on the average of 3 calculations: uniform assessment, population, and equal. And those 3 make sense in this environment, I think, because REMO serves a population, and uniform assessment has always been used as the ability to pay. And the third one is equal. And so equal meaning that regardless of how many people you have in a community, there is a component of planning that impacts us all equally. So it's for that reason those 3 numbers.
The first time I've seen the equal, I had never.
Yes.
Maybe it's been done before, but I couldn't see how you got that
It was done
32.45.
once.
Only one other time that we've used that, and it's
That's
in the rent.
kind of interesting. Like, oh,
Yeah.
the rent.
Yeah.
Okay, thought that was interesting. Like, you wrote down.
Yeah, so
It
we
was.
all agreed on this percentage, and
Yeah.
we would be at 32.45%. So the municipality of Yarmouth at 38.78, and the town at 28.77. And the funding formula gets recalculated every time a population census comes out. So because uniform assessment changes every year, but population does not, well, it does, but the census only comes out every 4 years.
Every 5.
Every 5. And so, so this calculation would be impacted in that year. Other highlights on the agreement would be that each municipality would designate one of their staff members as an assistant EMO coordinator. In our instance, it would be Kim Rowley, who would be designated, and so we're already training Kim to be in the position where she can do that. And I don't know that there's any other areas that I'd like to highlight. You've had the agreement, you've seen it. The agreement has been vetted by Greg Barrow, solicitor, so you had no concerns. How do you get out of this agreement? Well, we hope that you never do, but there are provisions on leaving that you should be aware of. So the agreement continues in force until notice of termination is given by council. So you need to provide 1 year prior notice to the intended termination date. and you can only terminate it at March 31st. So that's in fairness to the others that are trying to budget. So if you wanted to terminate this agreement next year, you'd have to give them a year notice before the end of March of that particular year. And any party that withdraws from this agreement remains responsible for its share of any liabilities of the REMO incurred up to the effective date. So if you get out, you can't get yourself out of liabilities that still exist, nor the other element is that any party withdrawing from the agreement shall be responsible for their share of the subsequent year REMO operating costs. So if you want out, that's fine, but you have to pay for your own EMO in that year, and also your percentage of the REMO operations should you have not been out, essentially. So it's very, it penalizes a municipal unit who decides they don't want in anymore, with the hope that if we have issues that we resolve them inside the agreement, not outside the agreement.
I thought that termination clause, I read it a couple of times, and because of the situation with the airport, I said this has been taken care of, this one.
Yeah.
Very much so, compared to the airport. This is very clear to me.
Yes.
If you want to get out of
the implications of leaving the REMO are quite different than the ramifications of leaving an asset that you co-own.
Right.
So in fact, this is an agreement to work together. There's no co-ownership of assets, and it's really co-management of the delivery of service. So there really wouldn't be a lot of reasons why somebody would say, well, I don't want in this anymore. It'd have to be pretty serious, because you would have to be in a situation where you just simply couldn't work with the other two partners.
Yes.
Is that okay? All right, couple of questions. What is the anticipated cost per year? Would it be more than what we're paying now to our coordinator now? What do we see as a budget?
I anticipate the budget will be
We're at
slightly...
10,000 now.
Well, the EMO budget is larger than that. So what will happen is, I think the total REMO budget would be slightly higher than our individual EMO budget.
Yes.
But keep in mind, we're only at 32% of that total. I don't anticipate a significant increase in our annual costs based on REMO.
Okay.
But I can't tell you that for certain because we haven't developed a budget. But I don't see it as significantly different.
Would the associate coordinators, there's 3 of them, 1 per unit, would these people be paid?
They would be paid by their individual units, and
Okay.
every single one of those persons would have this task attached to an existing position. Yeah, so Kim is not, it's not a new,
I do
it would be
understand.
part of their job.
That's right.
And it's definitely not full-time. It's a certain amount of hours, a low amount of hours every week, I would say. Yeah.
So Gunny, you will be full-time? You'll be full-time, more than you are now?
More than I am now.
No,
yes.
obviously,
More,
right.
Of course, it's going to take more work, especially initially when this is all being put together, when the plans are being updated, our plan, because our EMO plan is just for Argyle, so now that we have to incorporate the Yarmouth municipality within that. There's things that don't change. The bylaws and the bylaws and agreements and all of that, but there's certain things. I mean, the resources locally that I have in the Argyle plan are basically the same as what Yarmouth, because we already share those.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to call TIR, it doesn't matter if you're from the municipality, Yarmouth, or Argyle,
Right.
and a lot of the resources are like that.
We couldn't be in better hands. Thank you. That's it.
Any more questions? So we need a motion to approve this?
It would be a motion to approve the contract, which would put you in essence a member of this new.
Oh,
Before you go on, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the Warden and Council and the CAO for all the support that you've given the EMO coordinator during the past years. I have have never had any issues with any of you. You've been very supportive, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you to you.
Yes.
Do you?
Sure. For sure.
Yes. Okay,
I so move.
I'll second that.
moved and seconded. Any other discussions?
Question?
Question called for, all in favor?
Aye.
Contraminded, carried. The next one is the Regional Planning Service. And there's two attachments, a 4-page and a 2-page. Oh, that's for the, yes, for the planner.
Yeah.
So this,
It's a great idea, I know that, it's ready to, and that's a positive move.
did you want me to
Yeah.
go? Okay.
Go ahead.
So the request for decision and the 4-page document that's attached is something that the AMA Southwest Nova Group has created. So myself, Stefan Sear, CEO Claire, and CEO for Barrington, Chris Broughton, you might know him. The three of us developed and had help developing the 4-pager on the back of this, which is basically saying, look, we know the planning environment is changing. We know we need to do minimum planning standards. And the fact of the matter is from Shelburne to Digby, there are there's many different ways that we approach planning. I can tell you that if you hire a consultant such as WSP, that works, it works well. There's great planners out there. However, if you don't have the same planner as Shelburne, Digby, Yarmouth, you're basically just planning for yourself. And that's okay, you can do that. In fact, it's better than not planning at all. But at the end of the day, what we're proposing is consideration to do something better, which is like none of us can individually recruit and necessarily afford a planner that could do that kind of work. So let's pool our resources, let's pool our region and establish a regional planning arm, right? Which may or may not be a separate organization. It could be that a municipality would hire these people, and that municipality would build a service out to multiple places. Like there's a variety of ways it could look like. So we're not really there yet. We're not really asking councils to build it. What we're asking councils to do is give us permission to ask the province of Nova Scotia under its modernization funding stream to support the hiring of a consultant that would take the information from Digby to Shelburne and establish how we could do regional planning differently. So right now, just to give you an example, we used to spend, we used to be a 50% stakeholder in planning services, if you recall, with the municipality of Yarmouth. And at the time we hired a senior planner. The cost of delivering that service was between $38,000 and $48,000 a year. And it will be that and more this year, considering the fact that our consultant fees will be kissing $50,000 this year. Now this year is a very special year because we're doing work on land use. And yes, so we're asking them to do a very specific service. The reality is we don't always need a planner. We need them when we need them. And we used to have a situation where we had a planner shared between Barrington, Yarmouth, and Argyll, and that was the right number. That was the right amount because neither one of us had individually worked for one planner, but together as three we did. So we have an opportunity to build this from scratch. There's only one planner that is hired full-time from Shelburne to Digby, and it's the town of Yarmouth, who has a full-time planner. So how their planner would integrate in this, we don't know. But largely what we're asking for is a more broader planning function. It's one thing to plan for Argyll, it's another thing to plan to bring massive business or massive populations in. Argyll may not have everything it needs in order to be successful. And if we don't have a plan that incorporates other regions, we might miss those opportunities. So does it mean that we have the same zoning as the town of Yarmouth or as the municipality of Shelburne? No, it does not mean that at all. What it means is that you have one or you have a document that speaks for a region, and it may be Yarmouth County, it may be Shelburne County and Digby County, it could be 3, right? But there is a guiding principle that guides us all, and then our land use bylaws can look exactly what we want it to look like. You still have that power. It's not taking away your ability to plan for Argyle. So what we're asking for, and you've read the 4-pager, so I won't go through that, but what we're asking is that council would support the application for provincial funding for a shared land use planning service. We're asking for 90% provincial funding because we know that there hasn't been any applications for this funding stream, and so we're going to try to push the envelope a little bit. If the councils, we may not have all councils agree, and that's okay. So we may have 3 or 4 or 5 that agree, and we will still go ahead with an application. It might just cost you a little bit more because you have less partners. But I think I've given you an impression of what the budget might be. 56, depending on how many partners, it could cost more. So if you have less partners, it could cost less because there's less coordination involved. But we're really talking about not a ton of money, which could result in a very, very significant investment. I think there's anything else I would add at this point. You've read it. I just wanted to give you some frame up of why we're aggressively going after this money, and I guess that's it.
But it's just, it's as a consultant to see how this could work at this point.
Yes.
And I see there's 9 units now that are listed here, right?
Correct.
So that would mean more than one planner. You couldn't have one planner do 9 units.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And the consultant would be we would hire that consultant to tell us, like, depending on how many partners we have, what does this thing look like?
Yes.
Is it 2 planners? Is it a senior planner? Is it a master planner? Is it a GIS tech? Like, they would take a look at that.
You have a suggested motion there,
Yes.
so I will make that a suggested motion. If you want me to, you have it there, Lori?
Yep.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Yes, question?
I'll add the 75,000, would be if we get no funding at all from the provincial government. Is that whether that means the cost of such a service is currently speculative? We are projecting the cost could approach 75,000 on the higher end.
Right.
And if there's 10 units, it'd be $7,500 each.
No.
Okay, that's maybe I'm
No, it's okay. There's probably a sentence there that I could have added that would have clarified that. So the total cost would approach 75,000. So what we would be asking the province to support 90% of that number. So 10%, 7,500. Of the 10 units, let's say there are 9 or 10, we would share in that number, not in the 75.
Thank you.
If the province said no, first of all, I can't imagine why they would do that, but they could.
They could.
I don't know that we have the authority to proceed. I mean, if the province can't support this, I don't know, I guess we're on our own.
Really?
I don't want to make it, I'm not intending it to be political.
No.
They have a funding specifically for these ideas, and we're giving them an idea. So,
Nobody's applying.
so probably what would happen is they may say, look, we like the project, but we're not going to support 90%. Maybe they'll support 75%.
Oh, I get you.
At that point, we'd have to bring it back anyway.
Yes. Yeah, you're
So, yeah, I've made the motion. It's got rather confusing here, so for the public's benefit, I'll read the motion. The council support the application for provincial funding for a shared land use planning service, and that the request be for 90% funding provincially and the remaining 10% paid by participating municipalities
right there.
if the application is successful. That clears it up pretty clear.
Thank you very much.
So, any more questions?
Question?
Question called. All in favor?
Aye.
Contraminded? Carried. Next one is the fireworks bylaw, which
Let's go through that one quick.
I didn't realize we had one, but
We
Same
did,
here.
you didn't know we had one? No. I had no idea. I mean, I agree that I don't think that we need one, but not for what's happening.
I agree. If we're not getting any complaints.
In the 13 or 14 years you've been here on it?
And then in the big in the big fireworks, they have to have provincial approval. So we're talking about cottage, backyard,
Yeah.
rooms
That
for,
don't take long.
no, the Argyler has one every year at July the 4th, because he's American, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and there's no complaints in Argyll about that one, and that would be the largest one
Right.
that I know of that's
Yes.
privately done.
Privately run, yeah.
And so, I guess, from reading all this information, we have to repeal a bylaw. So we
correct.
need a motion to do that,
And
So it would
it's
be a
the
first reading.
reading of,
first read.
Just like putting in one, it would be a first reading to take it out.
Okay, so
And
that's to give the public a chance to say, well, no, you should have,
Yeah,
a fireworks.
exactly. Some people may not want, I mean, it's never been used, but some people may not want us to repeal that, and that's okay. But we do address the noise in our noise bylaw.
Right.
yes.
That's what I
So
like.
I feel like the noise bylaw superseded this bylaw,
Yes.
and that this one is really old.
It's redundant.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Somebody else make a motion.
I'll make the motion that we repeal this bylaw number 15.
Yeah, first reading.
First reading.
First reading.
Seconder.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. Next one is the cap. 4-page attachment, and this is what you,
Yeah.
Ada has passed these out, and that's to do with the,
So you've received the attachment that's on the agenda that talks about what the NSFM would like councils to do.
Yeah.
So, what the NSFM would like, well, the NSFM is looking for all party support for the cap and the change in legislation for cap and assessment. So what they're asking is that we approach our political people and encourage them that we should be banning or eliminating the cap on assessment. Well, actually, we've not recently gone on record as a council taking a position on this, right? So that's why it's been brought to our attention. So I have, and I'm gonna blast through this, but I have provided you some paper last minute because I only received it this evening. And it was a presentation that was done by the AMA and the NSFM to the minister at the time and also to other organizations talking about the cap and the problem. So at first when the cap came in, it was something that people liked because it was offering spike protection to those that were experiencing vast increases in their market value. So there was a story of this person from Lunenburg. She had been in her house forever, and there were there was a tremendous increase in value in land around that person because of interests from other people, and so the price was jacked up, and of course her assessment was also jacked up, and she was, low income individual, and she was in trouble. So this was where the cap was born back in 2005. Back in 2005, the cap rate was set at 10%. So any increases of market exceeding 10% would have been capped. Okay? At that time, 25,000 properties in Nova Scotia were capped. So in 2006 and then 2007, things changed, and every political party has had their hand in this, right? So it's not a political statement I'm trying to make here. So the cap rate eventually went from 10 to 5 and then went to CPI. That's when things really changed. So CPI is inflation. So as many of you are aware, inflation is between 0 and 2.5% for Nova Scotia since 2007. There were years where it was 0. So any market increase on a property was capped. So there was a year like that, I remember. The budget was a little bit harder that year. So, however, once they did the cap rate set to CPI, they went from 64,000 properties capped to 279,000 properties capped in the year after. right now we're still hovering around 300,000 properties that are capped. So this is not helping low-income individuals anymore. That's a lot of households. And in fact, what's happening is it's actually supporting those that are wealthier, because the assessment values on the larger homes, on the homes that have been beautified and perhaps not beautified because the cap would have come off, but those beautiful homes that have increased or appreciated in value without additions or any improvements on those homes, those individuals reaped the benefit of the cap more than anyone. So it's actually not helping the people it intended to help. And so not everybody is eligible for a cap. If you're non-resident of Nova Scotia, you're not eligible. But there are many that have a mailing address that is P.O. Box Nova Scotia, and there would be no way for anyone to know the difference. So some non-residents are enjoying the cap as well. I don't know what that number is in Argyle, to be honest. It does primarily benefit the wealthy, and these are facts that have been these are facts that have been vetted by AMA administrators. So I'm comfortable sharing them with you. Right? There's been a lot of work and data supporting the work that I am saying here. It's not just opinion. So this is like East Hants and CBRM have done a tremendous amount of work in analyzing their properties. There is a disincentive for people to purchase and build new dwellings because the cap comes off. There is actually an example where later in here that talks about a property that is literally a duplex, and the left side pays a much different number than the right side does. Like, it's the same home. So, you know, the one was paying $200 to $300 more on their half of a duplex because they had purchased it recently. Meanwhile, the other had been there a long time. So it really has had a negative impact. It's also had a negative impact on house sales. And so what's happening now is those same low-income seniors that we were looking to protect with legislation are now trying to get out of their homes and get into a smaller home. But in doing so, their property taxes is increasing because they're selling their old home, which was capped, and they're getting into a new home, which is not. So it's not necessarily helping those that we intended to help. And it hasn't been this bad for this long. It's really when the CPI became the percentage that it changed the way that this is operating. So there are other documents that I'm not going to get into a large detail, but you'll see that in 2007, for instance, in CBRM, the difference between cap and market was 2.2 million in assessment. That's not taxes. That's just the assessed value. Today, it's at 910 million. So it's a problem. And it's a well-documented problem that AMA and NSFM have been working very hard to try to change, to protect those taxpayers and try to even the stage. So they know that if they are recommending the elimination of the cap. They would like for you to support that initiative. You don't have to be specific. You can just say if you're agreeing with the NSFM, you can make a motion to agree with the NSFM's position on cap on assessment. You don't even have to get into that much detail about it, because there are specifics in the legislation. It doesn't just disappear, right? So what would happen if the legislation went through? What you are supporting by saying that motion is that the cap would end, but that there would be a grandfathering period for those that have the cap, and that grandfathering period would occur over 13 years. So for those that are benefiting from the cap, nobody will benefit from the cap, but it'll fade away over time. Also, there's two other things that municipalities will be expected to do. One is to retain a spike protection. So if there is a 10% increase in those particular years, there will be legislation that will cap those properties at the time that it happens.
I was thinking of that.
Not every year all the time, but if a particular property hits the 10 or whatever that percentage is, then there's a spike protection for those individuals. Also, every municipality will be asked to put in a low income rebate, tax rebate program. We already have one,
Already have.
but not everybody does. So we could either look at ours and make it stronger, better, more, you know, we can do that. We've mentioned that before, that we would look into that once the cap was eliminated. Because yeah, anyway, so it might mean that it doesn't necessarily mean that your property taxes will come down, but it might mean that your property taxes as a rate can come down, because you know how it calculates. There's two calculations. There's the assessed value, and then there's your rate of tax, right? If the cap disappears, this number increases.
Of course.
Right? So we would have to take a strong and hard look around whether this would decrease as a consequence. And it may, but depending on the impact on the cap on your residents. On CBRM, I can't see how it wouldn't. Like, the impact is massive. For Argyle, not as much, because our market values in some cases are diminishing, and so it's reducing the impact that the cap is having on that property. I realize I've said a lot and I've talked quite fast, understanding that cap is kind of a complex thing, but you have had a conversation about cap before. We just haven't taken a position on it recently.
Sure, this is not new.
No.
We hear that at NSFM, and you know. So what we need here is a motion to basically endorse what NSFM is trying to do, so that they know that we're on board.
If that's the choice of, if that's the will of council.
If that's the will of council, yes.
Correct.
You have a question?
Yeah, first, I'd just like to ask, I know the CBRM has a problem up there with that, but for like the residents of the municipality of Argyle, it's not another tax grab or a way for them to end up paying a whole lot more money each year on their taxes.
No.
Or I hope it's not.
No, it is to correct an inequity in the tax. So what's happening is the more wealthy are, it's the same here as it would be in CBRM or anywhere in the province. The more wealthy are experiencing the cap in a superior way than the less wealthy. So it would be, so right now, and I mean, I guess this can be debated, but right now, the statistics, the facts say that the taxation unevenness is benefiting those that have nicer homes, not those that have the less nicer homes. So it is, the elimination of the cap is an attempt to bring that back in a more even way. It is definitely not a tax grab in any way, and in fact, I think a lot of municipalities will consider a reduction in their residential tax rate to offset the elimination of the cap, keeping in mind that the elimination is happening over 13 years. It's not happening instantly. So you wouldn't, even if you considered there may be a reduction in the residential rate, and I'm saying may, it may not happen right away. It could happen after 2-3 years when the cap starts to diminish more and more. So it is something that could result in a reduction in rate. It will for some municipalities. I can't say that it will for us, but it certainly will allow for further protection to any increase. That's for sure. That is a for sure. And so how you want to deal with that is your decision as council. You may want to invest in another service if you're seeing an additional revenue, or you may want to reduce the rate, or you may want to increase rebates to lower income individuals to offset further the gap in income equality.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that the municipality district of Argyle agree with the NSFM for the elimination of the cap program.
Okay, seconder?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any, yes?
I want to be sure that I understand that poor old couple in Lunenburg, that what happened obviously was the land was being sold all around them, and all of a sudden that price really went up, and that poor old lady and guy, they were staying there. First thing, they weren't going to be able to afford their home because of the taxes they had to pay. That was the situation for some. Now, you know, as long as when the cap is, if it is eliminated, it's quite a contentious issue, that doesn't happen. Let's say in Red Zone, there's Americans that come and buy a piece of land or a house, and it's on the market at $100,000, and they buy for 350,000, whoever's next door, it can affect them unless they're capped. But as you said, it's, if I understand it right, it'd be a 13-year.
Yes. The cap.
And let's face it, so the assessment will go up on that poor little person.
Sure.
The assessment will go up because the cap is off now. But it's on a 13-year increment.
It
Is
would
that what
be, so what would happen, so there's two things happening there. So if the cap is where it is and it will be eliminated over 13 years.
Yes,
So the market value can go down or up, we don't know.
right, that's right.
So the
Absolutely.
cap will just, so whatever the cap was, let's say it's $20,000.
Yes.
So 20,000 divided by 13, I know it's not exactly
No.
the science, but because it's more complicated. So each year that would come off, which means each year they would have slightly more property taxes to pay because the cap will be coming off
That's right,
a little bit at a time.
that's right.
Now, that doesn't sound great.
No.
But keep in mind, there's somebody that is buying a house today
Yeah,
that has no cap. And so it's an uneven situation. There will be winners and losers in this change of policy, which is why they're saying over 13 years. Now, there is the spike protection still exists.
but it still is.
There's still a spike protection. I'm unsure what the percentage will be. That will be based on legislation.
Yeah.
But it could, let's say it's 10%.
Yeah.
So if there is that kind of spike, as you're, referring to,
Yeah.
people coming in and having a lot of money and buying up land, that will drive the value of property around it.
It does.
And that will happen, and that's in some ways good, because then it increases your ability to sell your home. So there's a positive there, that your home is increasing in value, which means you can sell it for more. But you also have this property tax potential problem, and if it's increasing too fast, there will be legislation to protect that from happening.
Because let's face it, in a lot of our communities in the municipality of Argyle, there's a lot of senior citizens, and a lot of them don't want to sell their property, even if it has gone up, that you still want to live in your house, along with the mosquitoes in Surrey's Island.
If they really had a problem with the house in Surrey's Island, all they'd have to do is ask the mosquitoes to move the house. I think they could. But the only other thing I would say about that is that there's that protection, then there's also the low income.
The low income, which
rebate protection.
that's a great point.
So based on what you think your community needs the most,
Yeah.
you have tools to offset
To help.
that situation.
Thank you.
Any more
Because-
questions? Yes.
Well, the Lunenburg example you
Yeah.
used, but the closest thing to that in our municipality would
Yes.
have to be on the ocean side of Route 3 going through Lower Argyle.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of out of province sales, like purchases and sales, like and they've been extremely high. So there is people that's been living along that stretch forever in their old houses and their pieces of land that if there's no spike protection, that would be the area, one of the areas that would be impacted most.
Absolutely, I get you. I get you.
And then basically, I'm probably in a conflict here because I have a house on that side of the road and
Yeah. You're not.
I'm not, no.
You're
I
not.
mean,
Okay.
it is what it is.
Question?
Question called. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. Capital expenditures. And that is, well, that's to do with we're looking to do some work on Tusket.
Yeah. We have some urgent repairs that are not budgeted.
Yeah. So really, we're looking at to approve 28,450.
That's the net additional
Net
investment.
investment.
I'd
So,
like to move that the unbudgeted net investment of $28,450 be authorized and that the CAO coordinate the urgent capital work on the Tuscan water and wastewater system as highlighted in the memo dated October 4, 2009, and that the federal gas tax funds be utilized to support the unbudgeted investment. Furthermore, that council approved the cost allocations of 2/3 municipal and 1/3 user for the cost of installation.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
On the question,
Yes.
should that be 2009 or 2019?
19? Yes, it should be 2019.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very good. Can you right on?
thank you.
Okay.
I saw
Thank you,
that.
Richard. I can
Any
see
more,
that. Thank you.
any more questions?
Question?
Question called, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, carried. Okay, we have a hospitality policy, and that is just for review at this point. It's something, I guess, that we're kind of told that we need at this point.
This is, MGA is requiring us, the province is requiring us to have a hospitality policy that identifies how we spend money. It specifically excludes the purchasing of alcohol using municipal money with certain exceptions, if you're doing a so Experience Argyle would be, you all right?
What, yeah, I think so.
Okay, do we need to do some water?
I have something.
Okay. So Experience Argyle would be an example of an area where you can serve alcoholic beverage using municipal dollars.
Oh, I see, okay.
Right, so there's very specific ways that you use this. Some call this the post-Richmond policy, but we don't want to say that too loud, do we?
Do we know anybody that knows?
Some call it that. I don't think it's a good idea to call it that, but
Not the proper wording, but
So,
it's not nice.
did we have a policy? I'm looking at the policy, and then there's a few of highlighted
Yes.
areas as if it's just an update.
The highlighted areas are, 8.1 highlighted is a correction.
Okay.
And others is just making sure that, most of this is a model bylaw, so the ones that are yellow are the ones that, those are the amendments that we made.
Okay, so
So
we
it's-
did not have one.
We have not
before.
passed this yet.
No, and we didn't
Good
have
question.
one before.
Correct.
We never had one.
No, there is no policy that exists right
That's
now.
right. So,
So this is a notice of motion, so this is
Yes.
your 7-day notice.
exactly. Yes?
I don't feel that it's acceptable for us to be putting any money in any alcohol. I always had that position. I don't agree with it. It's taxpayers' money. I know we're not being, what's the term I use that? Except we don't go all, what's the word now?
Frivolous.
We don't spend a lot, I'm not saying we spend a lot of money on this, but I feel any money that's spent on alcohol, which has been a big issue in some places, we've heard it across, in the province, and I really don't feel that the alcohol should be in this motion, in this bylaw. I disagree with it. I think there's, could be some liability issues that could come with that. That's an unknown. I don't feel good about it, and I don't feel that we should be buying alcohol with the taxpayers' money. That's my feeling. And again, it's just my feeling.
No,
Councillor Donald.
I guess I'm just trying to, when it came to Experience Argyle, it was a cash bar, wasn't it?
We didn't pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to clarify.
Okay.
We serve alcohol
Right.
at Experience Argyle.
Right.
We do not pay for
Yeah, okay.
alcohol.
So is there
At the
any
Experience
other
Argyle.
event that we actually buy alcohol? Like a volunteer banquet, it's a cash bar, right?
We have no event where we use municipal funds to purchase
I
alcohol,
didn't think
to the
so.
best of my knowledge.
Oktoberfest,
Pardon me?
Oktoberfest, was that a can?
That was
Cash
cash.
bar. Cash bar.
We have allowed alcohol to be served
Right.
Yes.
at municipal events, one being Experience. Oktoberfest we no longer do. And I think the other one was.
Volunteer banquet.
Volunteer banquet, yes, of course.
Yeah.
And there may be another one, but we've never purchased it with municipal dollars.
Yeah, I didn't
And the
think so,
staff is
because-
aware that if they go to a restaurant, first of all, we don't reimburse,
Alcohol.
we only reimburse to a maximum amount per meal.
Yes.
However, if we pay for a meal for other individuals, for instance, like if we've brought people in and we've purchased alcohol on their behalf, that is not an acceptable expense.
Okay.
We can't do that with municipal dollars. So,
Alright.
so your point is bang on, and And as soon as I said it, I realized that no, we don't actually buy it.
Yeah,
but we
okay.
do
That was a
serve
great point, Calvin.
Just
It's
to
a great
clarify.
point.
that's all.
it. It is absolutely the case,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Could I add something, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
5.3 says, the municipality of Argyle will demonstrate good judgment in the reasonableness of the quality and expense of alcohol beverage offered to guests. So we are saying that we will do it.
That's what I saw too.
We're saying, under 5.1, we're saying while the standard for hospitality is the provision of non-alcoholic, the provision of alcohol in the context of hospitality for reasons of diplomacy, protocol, business development, or promotional advocacy is deemed acceptable expense in limited circumstances. If council does not want any alcohol purchased, no matter what, then this policy would have to change in order to reflect that. So what we would say is, instead of saying that, is we would say there are no situations where alcohol would be purchased. So if you were to, I don't know, you bring in, you know,
The
Obama.
Governor General.
Yeah,
Governor General.
Governor General, and you had a wine and cheese, you cannot pay for that wine. If you change that, if you leave it the way it is, you can pay for that wine.
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
if-
and it is it's really any request or approval must have prior approval by the CAO or council. So either the CAO or council has to approve it. And if council wanted that power in its entirety, it could change it to say, nothing happens without council's approval. You could do that. This is your policy.
But if, the head people of Michelin fly down from France and want to come to Argyle to set up a plant, I think probably we should be able to have the discretion of buying them a few bottles of wine if need be. But that would be the approval from council, right? So-
And we could still do that, we just can't use municipal money to do it.
Could have a car bar.
So you could, yeah, no, but I mean, like, if you wanted to, as the warden, you wanted to buy a bottle of wine, you could do it with your personal money.
Yes.
But you can't do it with
I can't-
municipal
no,
money.
but if
If the change is made.
That's
like
right.
If what Guy is saying.
Without the change, but then even without the change, I couldn't do that just because I'm there, oh, I think I'm gonna buy some wine, it has to be approved. And you can't buy.
Not really,
No.
not according to that.
Well, yeah,
You can bring your receipt after and say, here.
If you use your personal money,
Yes,
this policy does not stop you from using your personal money
Right.
to purchase alcohol.
right, but I could put it as a claim, and then it would have to be approved by council to pay the claim.
No,
Well, in fact, what this says is it would be denied.
Right.
Because you didn't pre-ask.
pre-ask.
That's what I mean, so
Yeah.
that's what I was saying, we'd have to.
You'd
have to ask in
approval
advance.
In advance, that it's
Correct.
okay to do it,
That's
yes.
correct. Yeah.
I
So,
just don't believe we should even touch that.
you know, and
That's just, again, my opinion.
and that
Too often, you know.
is certainly something that we will be happy to change or keep the policy the way that it is when you're ready to vote for it at the next meeting.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Councillors acknowledging that Councillor Surratt has been on many committees with NSHA regarding alcohol and
Yeah.
alcohol prevention,
And that,
so recognize that.
So do you want
that's why.
direction now on that, on whether or not we want that out?
It would be, between now and the time that we
Okay,
bring it back. I
Okay.
mean, I'm gonna bring it back exactly the way it is,
Okay,
unless,
yeah.
and we can make the change on that day as well. I don't need to know, but I'm gonna bring it as is unless told
Okay.
otherwise.
So you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier on that this is going to all municipal units across the province?
Yes.
but
Do
each
we-
unit,
do-
can
But each unit can adjust it.
adjust it?
Do we have any idea who's doing what yet, or is it too early in the game?
No, we're a little late in the game, actually, so I think most of them would have passed the, I can find that
Find that
information,
out.
but most of them would have used the model,
Yeah.
is my suspicion.
Like I somewhat agree with Guy, but I don't feel we should do the complete, what used to be called years ago, the tempers or total ban on alcohol, like,
Right.
I don't agree, like, that you don't have some leeway in very, very special circumstances.
And it will have to be a very special circumstance.
And
It's not gonna- It's not
pre-approved.
gonna be approved just because I wanna talk to the mayor of Yarmouth and, yeah, I think I should buy a drink.
But I
You know
mean-
what I mean? Like, it's,
New Year levies, they have municipalities have New Year levies all over the province, Walden
Yes.
Cheese, right?
That's right.
So,
And there's Pike.
we don't,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of them that
There's
do.
Pike, Ignal.
It's quite
That's
big.
all of them.
There's one thing, if it's not there, it can't be used. There's one thing about that part. Anyhow.
Well, and, I mean, the other thing you should think about in anticipation of a decision is who do you, if you want to have that authority, who do you want to have hold that authority, right? You know, because we've seen instances of municipal employees abusing municipal dollars for that, for alcohol.
We've seen it.
And so it has happened. It wouldn't be the first time it hasn't happened in Canada. So you may want to provide a very short leash to staff or no leash and have complete control. So it's not just what do you want, it's what do you want to control as well.
Okay.
Is that you might be okay with letting it go a little bit, but it's got to come through you. Right.
Thank you.
Just something to think about.
All right.
So you don't need no motion for first reading or nothing?
I don't, I can bring it exactly as is, and what I'll also do for you is get a sense of what other units, particularly in this region, have done that can inform you in your decision.
Yeah,
And-
great.
And I'm not taking a side one way or another.
No.
You're all gonna have an opportunity to change this if you feel like it should be more restrictive, you'll have that opportunity. Okay.
Good. Correspondence. I'm just gonna go through them, and if you need to discuss any, just, PCAP, Pubnico Water Utility Renewal. Western Rand CEO Report. Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal Cost Sharing Agreement.
Could I speak?
Yes, you can speak on that.
So we'll probably put this again on your agenda for decision by the end of October. If you remember, we did an application on this last year for the Riverside Drive and Birch Drive.
Yeah.
Both of them were submitted, only one was accepted, Birch Drive, and that was 0.3 kilometers. So if you recall, I brought this to the attention of council. Do you want to cost share in this application? And you had debate, and you agreed that you would. And so that work will begin as early as next week. However, Riverside Drive is actually, if not in worse shape, there's certainly a section of it that's in very bad shape. So we have the option to apply for Riverside again, if we
In
choose
the next
to.
fiscal?
It would be, so it would occur next fiscal. First of all, it's an application, it's competitive,
okay.
so we may not even get it.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, if we do get it, it would be for construction 2020. And of course, you'd be asked to pay your cost share, which is 50% of that.
Yeah.
And that's a
So-
longer
Longer
stream.
piece.
It's 0.5. So 0.3 cost us 47,000 and change. So it'd be between
Cost
two.
us, that was our cost.
Or sorry.
So, yeah, so we don't have to make a decision on that today. I am gonna bring it back to you for decision by the end of the month because the deadline's October 31st.
Right.
So we'll give you time to think about whether or not you, A, want an application. If, the thing is an application does not bind you to do it. The application just says you're identifying a problem. If you're not ready to pay for it, you can still do the application and then say no after.
Right.
So the application doesn't bind you, but I don't wanna go down that road if you're not gonna say yes.
Exactly.
No, pun intended.
No.
So,
Agree.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Doctor recruitment update. NSFM news. Solar electricity.
How many, is that?
Yes.
Wedgeport makes it the third site we have?
The third site in our valley.
So we
So
have
there's one-
West Pubnico Fire Hall, with the sewer plant.
Oh, the solar plant.
I was trying to think where the other one was.
Same here. Yeah.
There's only one that's on our property. The other two will be, well, one of them we signed a lease
Yeah.
to rent the roof, but the ComFit revenue will come to us.
Yeah.
And Wedgeport is the recent announcement, so.
That's good news.
So there are some up already.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
they're not, I don't think they're attached to the grid just yet, but they're like, they will be very soon in late October, early November. I think they have to be attached to the grid.
Did I send you guys a picture of the one in West Pubnico by
Yes.
email?
You did.
Yes, you
Yeah,
did.
okay, good, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very-
Yeah.
And is this Argyle only, or is this three unit
it-
agreement again?
It's Argyle only, the 3 units engaged area which is an organization, a company, to do this work on our collective behalfs.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would not have had a chance.
Okay.
Yes, those guys are amazing.
They are. And the green energy
Oh, they're-
meetings we've
yes.
had, they're right.
They're really, really good.
And we have the Argyle Municipal Firefighter Association. If I hear none, we'll go to, yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
The East Pubnico Water Utility, we had asked for assistance for the PCAP. It's got
We did.
refused.
It got rejected.
So does that delay any work that's gonna be done on the water utility?
No,
No,
we were just hoping to get somebody else to pay for it.
okay.
That's right.
Makes sense.
Doesn't cost any gas, right?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Financial request, we've had one that was added here, and it's for the Plymouth School, $500 community grant. And that was
Yes,
senior.
as Plymouth School is requesting $500 in the form of a district community grant that would be used to help defray the cost of the creation of a running, walking track bordering the park. This track will be used by our students and staff to promote a healthy, active lifestyle, a love of nature, and a care and appreciation of natural habitats. This track will also be easily accessible by the community members who also wish to engage in a healthy, active lifestyle that is safe from oncoming traffic, as opposed to walking on the side of the road.
So you make that motion?
I'd like to, yes, give them $500 over my district community grant.
Okay.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Contrary-minded? Carried. We have a couple of agenda topics for next meeting. Notice of motion, I guess. Collection contract for waste, curbside pickup, and dangerous or unsightly policy. So that's gonna be discussed at our next meeting. We just
If
give
we-
us notice.
Yeah, if we get the information. So
Okay.
the first one will be, but the second one is, well, I hope they both will be, I should say. The second one is I'm waiting for legal and
Okay.
other things
Exactly.
before we bring it back to.
Okay. Question period. Nothing online. Do you have any questions?
Not yet.
So, it says in camera, but we have no in-camera.
There's no in-camera.
We have no in-camera issue, so.
Move to adjourn.
Been moved to adjourn. We need a seconder, is that?